you're a fantasy football player, you're a New York Jets fan, and you're wondering, are any New York Jets players relevant this year in fantasy football? Hey, I've got you. I'm a fantasy football player and I'm a huge Jets fan, and these are the players I'm gonna be looking at in this year's fantasy football draft.
You know that I got the mother sauce. You know I'm the boss, I know what it costs. Have you had a loss? I'm so versatile, I'm a renaissance man.
Congratulations, brother. Hey.
Okay, so man, it's been a while since we could literally say we've had some fantasy football relevant players on the New York Jets team, right? But here are some individual players that you as a Jets fan can kind of use to your advantage, because most other people won't be thinking about them because they don't watch the Jets the way we do. First overall individual, obviously this one's going to be no sleeper for any reason. Everyone knows about this guy, so if you can get him, I think in round 4, round 5, he's definitely worth a pick. We're looking at Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore is by far the number one target I would have this year on my radar for any New York Jets players. And the reason being is because we saw what he did last year in his breakout rookie campaign. He didn't have consistency at the quarterback level. He did get impacted by some injuries, but the kid can just ball. This offense is made for a player like that to go ahead, elevate, and create yards and create points. So for me, Elijah Moore is definitely in my target area of about, I'm going to be looking at him at around round 5, round 6. I shouldn't be giving too much strategy because a lot of the individuals that I play fantasy football against watch these videos. So I might just stop right there and stop giving actual rounds to where you can go ahead and draft these people. But these are the individual players that I would keep an eye on if I were you. So Elijah Moore, I mean, that's not really a secret. Like a lot of anyone who watches football or plays fantasy football knows this kid can ball out and what he can do. So I'll give that one for free. So I'm looking at Elijah Moore between rounds 4 and 5, only because I do believe he's going to be a very, very big part of this offense. Now, a lot of people are going to tell you that Garrett Wilson is the must-have individual on the Jets offense. I would disagree with you. I think Garrett Wilson is definitely going to be a great complementary piece. And if you're going to draft a rookie wide receiver this year, I would pick him ahead of Jameson Williams, even though Jameson Williams is who I thought was the number one wide receiver in this year's draft. So the reason being is because I think Garrett Wilson can do more things than Jameson Williams can, especially when it comes to fantasy football, especially if it's in PPR leagues. In PPR leagues, he could be an asset, but I wouldn't pick him up, before the 8th, 9th, maybe even the 10th round. And the only reason because is I do believe there's another receiving target on the Jets roster that could be a huge benefit if you get them and pick them up between rounds 5 and 8. I don't think they'll last that long, just based purely off of their come up from last year and then being, I think, tight end 1 in this system and in this scheme. So Elijah Moore would be the first player that I look at in terms of, drafting in this year's fantasy football drafts. So stash him in a pile for you to go ahead and get a little bit earlier than some would. I think you'll see the return and dividends. My second player is Breece Hall. I think Breece Hall is probably going to be a statistical monster for the New York Jets. And his only hindrance really would be the fact that Michael Carter performed admirably last year before his injury. He, I think in total had about 920 something yards between receptions and between rushing. And Michael Carter proved to us he can play in this league. And the guy also had, I think, the most broken tackles. I think the top 3 most broken tackles during the season as well. So he's a small guy that can go ahead and break tackles, get yards after the catch. And Michael Carter proved himself valuable. I also think Michael Carter is somebody you should target in this year's fantasy football draft. I wouldn't draft him early, only because with Breece Hall there, I think Breece Hall is going to go ahead and impede his ability to reach like elite running back 2, running back 3 status. But I think Breece Hall is a slot running back 2. The reason being is this. If you look at his tape last year, the kid did a lot with nothing. It wasn't as if Iowa had the best offensive line. A lot of times he had to create for himself. And I think our offensive line is not only incredibly better than what he's dealt with in times past, but it also has a lot more talent to support him, right? Wide receivers that can ball, tight ends that can ball, a quarterback that can go ahead and sling it. So I think the play action pass is going to do wonders to create some lanes for Breece Hall. And so I would be looking at Brees Hall as well as a running back that you want to go ahead and keep into that running back 2, running back 3. And yeah, I know he's a rookie, but in terms of rookie running backs, they tend to do pretty well when they first come into the NFL. If they were really good in college and they actually had those elite traits, that translates right into the NFL relatively easily. And I think Brees Hall can show us what that looks like this particular year. So I'd have Brees Hall also on your radar. I won't tell you what rounds because again, a lot of the individuals that I'm going to be playing against this year are watching this, are watching this right now, and I already have issues with freaking guys like Ryan and Raymond. They all know like my strategies and whatnot, and I don't need to give them a heads up as to where I'm looking at particular players. So my third player that you should be looking into is Conklin. I think Conklin is tight end 1 on this team. I think he's a custom fit for what the Jets are looking to do in the tight end position. You know what I'm saying? He's a average to below average blocker, but he's a great route runner, and that guy's got some great hands. And actually, if you've seen the latest Madden ratings, he's actually got one of the higher catch ratings inside the entire game for tight ends. So I believe Conklin is going to be a big factor in this offense this year, like huge. I think the playmaking ability, the yards after catch ability, the fact that Zach can throw the ball his way and his drop percentage is so low that he's going to get a lot of opportunity to go ahead and shine. Conklin to me is one of my rising stars this year when it comes to not just fantasy football, but just in the NFL in general. I think he's going to go ahead and be a stats monster for this Jets offense and in this particular scheme. Bringing his talents from Minnesota, Conklin was one of my favorite signings this year. Made by Joe Douglas. So Conklin is most definitely somebody that I would consider for your fantasy football drafts. I'm just throwing that one out there. Again, I'm not giving you a specific round to pick him in, but I would plug him in as somebody you want to look at when it comes to the tight ends. And believe it or not, the next player, so to speak, in terms of this, right? I don't usually play individual defensive players. I usually play defenses. I would pick the Jets defense. I would pick the Jets defense. Year 2 on this system. I think Robert Saleh and Ulbrich have the tools necessary to really implement this defense the way they want to and need to for it to work. I think our defensive line is probably one of the top strengths of our team. They're probably a top 5 unit in this league if those guys stay healthy. And they pan out to what their ceilings look like, right? We've got a top 5 defensive line unit in the league. And with the addition of Reed and the addition of Sauce and Whitehead in the back, I see a lot of turnovers coming our way that we didn't have last year. Those guys are playmakers on the ball. They can cover. We know Sauce is going to have a bit of a learning curve as a rookie, but with veterans like Reed and Whitehead, you know what I'm saying, back there as well, I still feel like it's a much improved defensive aspect. And on special teams, we've got an all-pro kick returner in Braxton Berrios. I think the Jets defense is going to get you some points. And in some situations, will win you some games this season in fantasy football. So those are my top individual aspects for fantasy football when it comes to the New York Jets. We're looking at our boy Elijah Moore. We're looking at Brees Hall. We're looking at Conklin. And then we're looking at the Jets defense, potentially, as being all impact aspects on your fantasy football roster if you can get those guys. Now, some of y'all are probably wondering, well, what about Zach Wilson? Like, Zach Wilson's one of your top. I have big expectations for Zach Wilson this year. And Zach Wilson is definitely my sleeper QB that I would go ahead and stash in the later rounds. He's going to be probably my QB2 or QB3. Well, one of my leagues, we played 2 QBs. So I'll probably have him as my QB3 if possible, if I can sneak him in there. So Zach Wilson is definitely somebody I would look into to definitely draft. I wouldn't let him fall to free agency. I would definitely stash him on a roster. Right now, he's going undrafted in most mock drafts, which is fine. As a Jets fan, you know what his trajectory looked like towards the back end of the season last year. And with the tools all around him, you know what this kid can become. So I would venture or argue that Zach Wilson is definitely worth QB2, QB3 spot on a roster if you're in those 2 quarterback leagues. But with that said, who's interested in fantasy football? I'm looking to go ahead and do a content creators fantasy football league. And I also want to do a subscribers league as well, right? So I'm trying to kind of get the details together for that. The season is quickly approaching, so we kind of needed to get going for those drafts to happen here in August. So if you'd be interested in a content creators league, in fantasy football, let me know. I'd be more than happy to go ahead and set it all up. We can go ahead and dictate what that looks like, whether it's, a buy-in, or whether we do a trophy or memorabilia as like the winner gets that at the end of it. Like, I'm all about it. And same for my subscribers too. If you're a subscriber and you love fantasy football and you love to be a part of a fantasy football unit that I put together, I think we would probably do like a live, I would like to do live NFL or fantasy football drafts on the channel for anyone interested, like for whether it's the content creators and or the subscribers. So I've been just tinkering with that the last couple of days, since I'm seeing a lot of my leagues kind of like come back to life. And I was just like, man, I would like to see if I could create one with content creators and create one with subscribers. Of course, it will be a 10 to 12 man league. I don't really play those 20, 30, like it will be a 10 to 12 man league. We'd have to dictate like how individuals would get picked to be in the league. And we would talk about buy-ins, and we would talk about the end of year prize. Actually, for the subscribers, I think I would just do an end of year prize, right? Depending upon what that looks like. So again, I'm still trying to figure that part out. But if you're into fantasy football and you would love to see or be a part of a New York Jets fan or New York Jets content creator league with me, drop a like, subscribe, and then leave me a comment so I know exactly where your mind is at in regards to that potential approach. And I'd love to go ahead and interact with you and engage with you guys throughout the entire season, not just through watching live football games, but let's talk crap to one another as well about our fantasy football picks. Let's test our knowledge as to how much we know about football. But that's it for me for today. Wanted to go ahead and share those fantasy football picks with you guys when it comes to the New York Jets. Again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and if you haven't entered your name into the Keyshawn Johnson autographed helmet giveaway, I highly recommend you do that. The odds are going to be highly in your favor. I'll be making that announcement here in 4 days. In 4 days, on July 26th, I'll be going live to announce the winner. The winner will be picked live via the selection process, the automated selection process, so you guys can all see it for yourself. And right now the odds are good. So Keyshawn Johnson helmet, autographed helmet, it's been authenticated and everything. You're going to get this helmet with the case, with the helmet, everything sent to your house. So that way, before the first game of the season, you have, some authentic memorabilia to go ahead and showcase and show off to your friends and your family. So again, that's it for today. Like and subscribe. Seriously, I appreciate the love and the support. Like and subscribe. Leave me comments. Let me know what you guys think I'm doing good, what I'm doing bad. I'm adjusting fire as you guys are sending me more information and more feedback, and I appreciate it. So till next time.
Yeah.